Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us for one of the most exciting hugs of the year, the one that we look forward to. We get to almost feel like Oprah at this time of year, all the new stuff that HubSpot released. You get a new feature, you get a new feature. We all get new features. Exciting to be able to go through everything today. What I wanted to start with, though, is some of the stuff that we're going to go through today is actually not in every portal yet. So I wanted to take you through how we keep up here, because it's a really common question people ask, like, this is all cool, but how on earth do you know this stuff, and where do you go to keep up, and what can I do to find out when this stuff drops earlier in the process? So there are a couple of places that you can get this information. Start with HubSpot have a dedicated Spotlight website. So it is hubspot.com/spotlight. And Spotlight they update it quarterly. So even though we've got all the excitement from inbounds, everybody's thrilled, you will find new information there throughout the year, even when there isn't an inbound event. You'll find websites, you'll find links to training content, you'll find all the other stuff in between. And so you can go through and you can see everything that's been updated there. You'll also find a deck at the bottom, and you'll find a list of all the releases as well. So that will give you a really good starting point for what on earth is going on here and what is new. The other page on the HubSpot website I just want to point out is this is a really difficult one to remember, so bear with me here. HubSpot.com/new. NEW. So HubSpot.com/new is where you can go to see all the new things as they're added into HubSpot. So you can see some of the things that we're going to talk about today. You can see some of the product updates, and they will also occasionally give you roadmaps. Now, HubSpot will put on their own roadmap all of the precautions there about the things that may not come true. So just take the roadmap with a grain of salt, because we'd hate to see people buy a certain tier of HubSpot for a certain feature and then find, oh, look, it's not actually available to me yet, and HubSpot said it would be available in September and it's not yet. So those are the two places that you can go to on the HubSpot website for all of the new things. And I can see we've just had a few people join. You haven't missed much, that's okay. We're just showing people on the website where to go to get some of the information I'm going to cover off today. The last thing, which is probably my favorite thing here, is in your HubSpot portal itself. So this is our test portal. You can see we've got Ron Swanson here as a contact. Any Parks and Rec fans? So in your HubSpot portal, there's two places to access this. But up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see the name of your business, the name of your portal, and then down here, you will see an option that says Product Updates. Now, this is the way to get product updates sometimes before they're actually official. So the product updates is going to tell you all the things that are new to you that you can now do in your portal, specific things that are available to you. You can see new things that are recommended to you based on your usage. You can see things that are scheduled for release. So this gives you an opportunity to go, hey, team, this is a new thing that HubSpot are making available to us. I think this is really important. Let's all get on board and get some training in this. And also you'll see here that there's a sunset option. So you can filter this out just to see the sunset items. For those of you who aren't familiar with what sunset refers to in software. It's a feature that they're retiring. So in HubSpot land, normally they sunset a feature because either they've replaced it with something better or no one used it. They thought it was a great idea and it actually didn't work out that well. Now, the other thing here to be really aware of is, you can see I've got a whole bunch of things here that say join beta. Now, we've got let's see, what's my favorite one here? The data agent. So this is a public beta, which means anyone can enroll in this beta, get that feature added to their platform. So I can click on the name data agent. It's going to give me a bit of information about what it is. It's one of the cool things they announced at Inbound. So data agent actions your data throughout the HubSpot Smart CRM. So it's an AI-powered agent. And by the way, you're going to hear the word AI or the acronym AI so many times today. I am not putting $1 in the jar every time I use it. You've been warned. The AI-powered agent researches and answers custom questions about your customers by analyzing your data. So one of those really cool use cases for AI that was announced, you can see here who gets it. So you can make sure that you've actually got the product mix required to use that. So for example, if you were on a starter tier, you won't get the full set of features that you would get on Pro and above. That's cool. If it's going to apply to you and it's going to be useful to you, you can click this Join Beta button, and it's quite painless. You can choose to enroll only yourself. If it's a feature that is available only for yourself, you can enroll your entire account or your entire organization, depending on how you pull it structured. So I go, yep, I'm going to participate in the beta, and I'm going to join the beta, and there we go. Cool. Now I'm going to be added to that beta. Now, just remember that if you're not used to the world of beta functions, sometimes these are private betas. And when you request a private beta, you will not immediately get that feature. So if you request it and then you're disappointed because you can't see it in your portal, it's okay, it's fine. They'll take a couple of days just to double check that you're eligible and that you've got the right product, and then off you go. So go through and add whatever you want here. Remember, if something is in beta, it may not be fully finished. And we have from time to time seen bugs with the beta software that comes out. So please remember that, and don't be too surprised if you come across a small bug in HubSpot. All right, who is excited after looking at how we can get all that new stuff? No one? Great. For today's session, please make liberal use of the chat box. Let's try to make this as interactive as we possibly can. If you've got questions as I put them in the chat box, then we'll be able to make sure that we address them and we make this as interactive as helpful for you as can. Now, let's have a look at the product updates. Now, product updates for this inbound, there was really only one word, one acronym that everybody got to use all the time, and that was AI. And I successfully, yep. So that was AI. So everything that HubSpot announced at Inbound really was used the AI word. And in lots of different use cases. So we've seen a couple of use cases come out already in the lead up to Inbound, where HubSpot have been doing some cool things like the ability to bring your data into ChatGPT, Claude, now they're doing Gemini, and you can ask the AI questions about your own data. Now we're seeing them take it in a couple of different directions here. So if you're not fully familiar with agents, agents is something that you'll be hearing a lot when it comes to AI, and it's essentially autonomous AI-driven bots that can go through and achieve a certain task for you. Now, one of the co-founders of HubSpot, a bloke called Damesh, he's a ginormous nerd. And when AI first started coming out and being more widely used, he was one of the big supporters of agents, so much so that he had the domains and had some of the first agents running. So HubSpot was one of the first CRMs that supported what we call Model Context Protocol, MCP, which is essentially a protocol that allows the agents to take actions on your screen. And since then, HubSpot have built out a whole range of functionality in their hub. So first of all, focused on making sure that you can get your data into the hub so that we can train the AI in your specific data, your specific information. And second of all, once that data is in your hub, that we can then use that to be able to make your life easier, generate more marketing assets, and really live up to the new methodology that HubSpot have started talking about, which is called loop marketing. So we've been inbound marketing for quite some years, and now they're saying, look, loop marketing is where it's at, because with all of this amazing AI tech that we've got to be able to throw at these problems, how awesome is it if we can then feed the data that comes in from the campaign back into the AI and make adjustments as we go. And that's the concept of the loop. So in this deck, we want to look at all of the different hubs in HubSpot. And we're going to start with Marketing Hub because a lot of us are marketers, and it's one of the really exciting things that we want to cover here. Now, and way to start with the most exciting ones. This is one of those essential ones that really needed to be done, where we can send form submissions from excluded IP addresses and referrers to spam. Now, this is just really about spammers are getting increasingly clever. They're using AI to be able to put together better and better spam. And so what we really want to be able to do here is find new ways to block it. It's really disappointing that we have to constantly find new ways to battle these guys. But this is about introducing automatic spam filtering into HubSpot. So I know it seems like it's not the most amazing thing here, but this is what we would call a quality of life improvement. Because I know for one, I'm sick of cleaning spam out of my HubSpot portal. I know clients are sick of cleaning spam out of their portals. And in the marketing contacts world, if you're not familiar, that's the model that HubSpot uses with the pricing tiers these days. If you have spammers taking up marketing contacts seat in your database, then it's a really quick way to increase your HubSpot costs when they're not actually driving impact for you. There's some new ways to track your campaign goals. And again, this is AI powered. So we're looking at this being better ways of being able to report, more insights into campaigns. And just as a tiny little aside, for those of you who try to automate things in HubSpot, HubSpot also have rolled out a campaigns API, so we can now integrate the campaigns data with other sources outside of HubSpot, which is awesome. Shared users and team properties on additional objects. So we'll talk a bit more about additional objects later on. But if you are on HubSpot Enterprise then for quite some time now, you've been able to create what we call custom objects. So a standard off-the-shelf object is a contact or a company or a deal or a ticket. Over the last 12 to 18 months, HubSpot have also added standard objects for things like appointments, courses, listings for property, and service objects, so that you can then track which of your customers take up which service. Now they're adding some more properties here so that we can control the permissions a little bit more, and we can also change the ownership of these to be team owners rather than just individual owners. So small quality of life. Object property snapshots for events data. So we're now adding, for the marketing events in particular, we're adding things like point in time tracking, historical analysis, and trend insights. Custom on form submissions. So this is one of those things that I mentioned the product updates page for. This is a public beta that's out now. And this allows you to use form submissions as a data source in the custom report builder. So a nice little way of being able to make your reports even more accurate and insightful. Healthy and unhealthy lists in your email health. Hopefully we all know at this point that email is getting increasingly difficult. We need to make sure that we abide by everybody's email health rules. And do the right thing email-wise, otherwise we'll find all of our emails in the spam filters. So there is now a new report within the email health dashboard to help you understand which of your lists are the healthiest and the unhealthiest based on things like engagement metrics and deliverability. So there's a few things that you can look at there, and the deliverability improvement you might get over time. If you do have some issues there, we've covered this in a previous hug, but highly recommend trying something like 7 cents to customize your send time to the different times of day that every recipient needs it. The interesting thing that HubSpot have quietly done here is they've upgraded the task system and they've created a unified task system. But one of the things that they sneakily did was they also added a projects object into HubSpot. So it looks like they're starting to lay the groundwork for being able to turn HubSpot into a basic project management system. It's not a full-fledged Asana alternative just yet. HubSpot have always had some basic task and project functionality internally, but now that they've turned it into a full-on object, there's a lot more that you can do with it. And if you start to look at some of the other functionality they've rolled out in the last 2 years, where you can do things like build your own custom CRM cards and get quite deep into the weeds in terms of customization if you've got your own developers, or if you've got a HubSpot partner agency with developers that helps you. So we're starting to see more people trying to use HubSpot as their project management system. So an upgraded task system becomes very helpful there. You can now add active contact lists to campaigns. This was a big pain point in the past where you could add static lists, but you couldn't add active lists. The other thing that they did in terms of lists is that lists are now called segments. So in your menus over the last week, you would see that it now says segments and then in brackets lists, just so that you know that they're the same thing. And it's a good way of being able to identify that your lists are actually segments of your data. I am assuming here as well, you can jump in the chat if it's not the case, but I'm assuming here that everybody knows the difference between an active list and a static list. If you don't, let me know in the chat and I'll be happy to answer that. So formula fields updates. So there is now AI formula suggestions. This is probably one of the coolest things that a lot of people don't know is hidden in HubSpot, but you can create fields calculated fields, formula fields. So calculated fields are against your objects. Formula fields are in your report. So you can actually add things up in the reports in HubSpot. So if you're using the reporting in HubSpot, this is huge because it stops that use case where, oh, I've got to export the data out of HubSpot into a spreadsheet, and then I've got to do this, and I've got to pivot table and do everything else. A lot of people's reporting can actually be done in HubSpot, which also means that once the report is set up correctly, then you shouldn't need to pull it apart and change it again in the future. You should just be able to reference it. Send them a link. Laura, this one's Pro and Enterprise. The calculated fields, I'm pretty sure, are Pro and Enterprise, but you might be able to do them in Starter if you are within your number of fields. Sync ads from lists. So again, when we talk about cool things that you can do in HubSpot that no one knows about, one of the cool things that you can do with your segments or your lists is you can sync those as ad audiences into the ad platforms. So once you set up your list, then there is an improved way now that you can pass this into LinkedIn, Google, and Facebook right from the list. So it's a bit easier than it was before, effectively. So this is really cool for things like retargeting use cases where you want to retarget people who visited your site. But this takes this a step further because you can have a list of people that are at a certain stage of your sales process, and you could show them a different ad as a result. It's always worth remembering too that you'll need a reasonable number in your audience to make sure that that ad audience actually works. But if you've got kind of I would say 1 to 2,000 in that segment, then that works quite well. If you haven't got 1 to 2,000, this is a good opportunity to tinker with your segments and find a segment that's going to work for you. You can finally rename HubSpot defined objects. So yes, you can now change the word deals to something else, which is something that our friends in the nonprofit sector have been crying out for a long time, because despite the fact that we use the deals functionality quite often for tracking fundraising campaigns and things like that, the deals terminology doesn't really gel. So we can now rename those, and so that also opens up the opportunity where if you're an organization that doesn't really track companies, you could rename companies to be families, and you could associate the different family members with that family and track that from there. All right. So if you don't have access to custom objects, this could be a really good use case for you. And this is available on all tiers and it's live now. This tells you how many people you're about to email. And we're going to skip through that so that we've got time to cover everything. Now, Content Hub. Content Hub used to be called CMS Hub, which used to be called something else. Anyway, it was COS at one point, and then it was CMS, and then it was Content Hub. Content Hub is effectively the part of HubSpot that lets you run your website. But over the last 18 months, when they relaunched it as Content Hub, they've added a lot in here that genuinely means that it's about more than just your website, and it's about a range of content. For example, there is now a new video editor in Content Hub, and there are a whole bunch of really cool video functionality that's been added into HubSpot so that you can use HubSpot to generate your own video content, generate shorter videos for social from longer videos, things like that. And in this case, one of those features is audio uploads in the video editor. So you can already create podcasts in Content Hub. Now they're adding in the video editors as well. There are image overlays in the video editor as well. So another way of being able to make quick, easy videos. This is an interesting one because I would probably still make them in Canva myself. But Canva is a separate license and a separate seat. So if you don't have Canva licenses, this would help you with simple video editing. Landing pages. You can now clone a landing page and generate content for the new landing page using AI. So we'll talk more about the AI training functionality in a couple of minutes. But really, AI has always been a case of if you feed the right information into it and train it properly, then you'll get good output. And so in this case, what HubSpot have done, have gone, hey, we've given you all these tools to give us all the relevant information about your brand, your company, your organization. And so with these tools, with the data that we've got here, we can now build a reasonable landing page clone from the information that you've given us. So this is about speed to deployment. And so you'll find that this is already in your portal. No, this would be in the product update section for you right now if you are on Pro or Enterprise. We can now do custom templates and combine those with AI content. And there is a new brand functionality so that you can train the AI in what your brand actually looks like and represents. So you can feed your logos, your colors, your fonts, even your language style guide in, so the HubSpot can create better custom templates for your landing pages. We can now import content from Google Drive to be remixed. So content remix is one of the fun features that the HubSpot launched last year, where you can take a piece of content and HubSpot will help you turn it into 10 different assets for social media, as an example. So you can start from a Google Drive file and remix that into a whole bunch of different content. And then once you've got that different content, you've got those ideas, you can work with HubSpot to get that deployed. Creating personal content from lists. This is another one where we really want to make sure that we've got our content personalized effectively. And that's always been something that's been possible, but now with your different segments, we're adding AI into the mix there. And you can now do more targeted list-based personalization. If you're using HubSpot for your website, you've probably already seen the smart rules that you can do to personalize content. Now we've got some more segment-specific messaging and some more AI content remixing for your different segments. We now have better template selection in the landing pages tool. And so you can go and find a landing page in the marketplace. You can create one with AI, or you can use the one that you've already got. And some information here about changes to your domains. Typically, this is something that we would have reasonably locked down so that you can't have just anyone going in there and messing with your domains. But the activity log in HubSpot is only about 2.5 years old. So it's nice to see that that is flowing out into other parts of the tool. So we've got a complete log of all of the different actions that are taken in a HubSpot portal. Cool. Let's talk about Sales Hub. Now, we can add associations to the deals table in the sales workplace. So associations are really important for our ability to pull context into the deal and to be able to properly attribute them. And now you can add them in columns in the sales workplace to just make that a little bit faster and easier. While they're at it, they've made the sales workspace a bit easier to use, a bit easier on the eyes as well. Lead scoring calculations are a bit easier to understand now. So one of the frustrations we often find for people is if you're using the AI-powered lead scoring, you don't necessarily know what criteria go into generating that score. So a lot of the time, we still choose to use manual lead scoring to be able to calculate that. Now it's going to be clearer what's going on here because HubSpot's going to be more transparent about how they're calculating that, and that's just going to help you and all your reps prioritize your leads. Now, if you're using the calling functionality in HubSpot, you can now use what they're calling the call remote. The nerdy name for that is the CLI. So you can use the call remote to make calls using an external device, such as your mobile phone, which is pretty cool. Conversation-powered deal risks and buyer goals. So this one is actually really cool because one of the challenges that you get when you're reviewing your deals on a regular basis with your sales team is you kind of, sometimes you're going off a gut feel when it comes to, is this deal going to close? When is it going to close? When do we think the revenue is going to come in? Those kind of things. What now happens is HubSpot assigns its own AI-driven number in terms of how likely that deal is to close, what the buyer's goals are, because we've got meeting recorders and things that feed that into HubSpot, any risks that have been identified in the deal. And so you can actually sit down when you review your deals with your sales team and go, hey, you thought that this was like 90% there. HubSpot tells me that it's only 60% there. And the other cool thing that HubSpot does with this particular feature is it tells you why it gave it 60%. So it'll say something like, last week it was 80%. We've decreased this by 20% because no one's spoken to this prospect in a week. Their last email went unanswered, and we haven't spoken to them. So we think it's less likely that that deal would close. Amazing sort of additional data points that we just wouldn't have had in the past. The prospecting agent. Now, agents have had big boosts here, and we're going to go through that. But the prospecting agent can now be let loose to go and help you with your new client acquisition. So the agent can now make better decisions about research and about an outreach approach based on what your goals are and what you're hoping to achieve from that outreach. So this, again, is probably one of those things where it's like, well, there's been tools out there to do things like this, but we in this very fragmented type AI environment at the moment. And so as a result of that fragmented environment, you've got a whole bunch of AI tools that only know very little because they don't have access to the bigger picture. So not only does that add to the cost of your technology because you've got to have 80 tools, but it means that the tools that you're using for prospecting don't understand the relationship that you've got with other companies already, or you might already have with that company. So HubSpot have built this in. There'll be a few companies, a few tools now that we probably wouldn't recommend as add-ons anymore because you can do it in HubSpot. So it'll save you a little bit of money, but also more importantly, you've got that context so that the AI can make better decisions about their outreach. Multiple dashboards in the sales workplace. It's just like the normal dashboards. You can now have multiple dashboards so that you can have more specific reporting in every part of the sales workplace. So it'll just help you make sure that you've got the right reports available to you when you're reviewing your deals as a team. Recent activities in deal insights, the conversation-powered summaries. You would already have seen these as the Breeze excerpts at the top of your contact cards. There's now a lot of more information that can be pulled out here. And you can see there that it's got integrated call summaries. HubSpot launched their own meeting recorder a couple of months ago. You can link that in with things like Zoom and Google Meet. And that will then pull your meeting recordings in as activities on a record. If you're using either HubSpot calling or something like Aircall or Dialpad, they will all integrate with the calling API in HubSpot. So all of your call recordings are going to come over as well. So all of that information comes together to be able to help with a sales rep's least favorite job, which is paperwork. So we need them to do some paperwork. They hate doing the paperwork. So let's just get the AI to pull that from the conversation so that we've got that information. All right. Let's talk about Service Hub. Now, Service Hub in its core is very, very similar to Sales Hub. So a lot of the features that we just talked about in Sales Hub will be relevant to Service Hub as well. But we now have today's insights card in the help desk. So we've got some different trends here that are more important from a support desk perspective. Things like rep availability, ticket volume, team performance. We will get better information there about how we are going and how we're supporting our customers. So you can see there that in this case, there's nobody who is at their maximum capacity, but that's a data point that we can now pull out so we understand if anybody is at their maximum capacity. The number of tickets that were completed within the service level agreement. And in this particular case, HubSpot had the highest number of tickets open in the last 4 weeks. So they're a customer that needs a bit of extra support at the moment. So really useful data points, and the way that this is evolving, this in an enterprise environment at the moment, they're already doing things like you can set the level of expertise or the areas of expertise for your team, and then route tickets based on what the AI assigns that ticket as. So if the ticket looks like it's related to social media, it'll look at our tenant and it'll go, hey, Alice has got all the mad skills in social media. So we're going to allocate that ticket to Alice. So we're getting that kind of information coming through. But now that we're also considering maximum capacity, we're getting to a point where it's like, okay, I'd love to allocate that ticket to Alice because I know that she's the best person to get that done. But Alice hasn't got capacity for 3 days. So the best thing to do would be to allocate that to somebody else. So it's all about making sure that customers get timely support on every ticket. We now have a board view for the customer tab in the customer success workspace. So you can see all your customers in here now, and you can start to build out what their customer success journey looks like. In this case, you can see that there's an onboarding structure, and so that will also mean you can automate different steps along the way. I think this one will be really good for a whole range of different organizations, including ourselves, because this kind of data has often been a little bit difficult to pull out. So being able to pull out how close they are to renewal, how engaged they are, we can pull those engagement scores and things like that as well. Default email in the help desk. So yeah, you can set different teams to have their own default email now. It's one of those things that's like, why didn't this exist before? But also support is getting more complex and people have got more email addresses now. So it's become a big requirement. Views customization. So there are more ways to customize your views. Help Desk is actually a reasonably new product. It's only been out for, I want to say 7 months out of beta. And so now we're getting some more customization, which is very much the HubSpot way. They'll often release the tool, and then if it gets picked up with adoption, then they'll continue to build it out. average NPS rating and customer satisfaction score CRM cards. So you can actually put these in the contact and the company record now and be able to see the average ratings that those companies and those contacts give your company. So for example, you might see that one person constantly gives you a very low CSAT score, but if you go to the company record, the company itself has a reasonably high score, and that allows us to have different conversations with our contacts at those companies around their experience. There is a new help desk ticket timeline, so you can actually see the different activity on that ticket. So it helps you bring in context into your conversation, and it also resizes things so it's a bit easy to use. This one here is a public beta, so you will need to request it in your product updates section. A dynamic reply editor. So you now get, with your historical access, then you can access this straight out of the sidebar, more context. So this is really helpful when you've got multiple reps that need to pick up the same ticket. Create and view notes in the help desk. This one is kind of surprisingly exciting, because comments have, from time, depending on where the comments are posted, become a bit of a pain point because they can be sent to the customer without the rep necessarily understanding that. So instead of putting our responses into things as comments where we would tag our colleagues, now these go in as notes. So you can see they're a different color. It shows me who created the note. It tags a colleague in, and the colleague can go in there and have a look at it. And it just keeps things a bit more separate so that the internal notes are kept separate from the notes to the customer. Okay. Help desk coaching tab. So if your help desk and your support team are big enough to have team managers that are coaching, there is a whole bunch of really exciting stuff coming here, which is starting off with the coaching tab. So this is about contextual coaching, being able to train up the team. And you see here, we're looking at basic things like first response is within the service level agreement, tickets that are closed in the service level agreement, the CSAT scores, things like that. But we're also starting to see features come out in the HubSpot ecosystem where people can live coach on a call. Aircall is rolling out AI-powered live coaching. And so really just more things that we can do here to help train our teams up to be able to provide the best service possible. And as part of that, providing that best service possible, the team need that extra support to be able to deliver that. Close date automation for service records. So if you use the service record, the service object, you can now set up an automation where it'll close them at a certain date. Nice for your hygiene. Cool. So when I talk about these two being very similar, here are the features that come together. So we can now customize the inbound recording consent message. So this happens when somebody rings into you and you use HubSpot calling. You can now change the consent message to whatever message you want to put in there. And most people would then use the AI to be able to do that. But it's nice that you can now put your own voices in there and put your own message in there that fits with your brand. Cool. All right. I'm going to guess that not very many people on this call have ever heard of Data Hub. And that is because until last Wednesday, it was called Operations Hub. And so Operations Hub's actually been probably one of the more misunderstood HubSpot products. Calling it Data Hub actually makes a lot more sense. And the new features that HubSpot have rolled out here make Operations Hub make so much more sense. And it's really useful to be able to integrate all your different systems together. So I was on one of these calls last year or so. HubSpot bought a company called Clearbit. Now, Clearbit was one of the industry leaders when it came to contact enrichment. So they had some really cool technology where if somebody visited your website, they could take all the different data points that they've got, and with a fairly high degree of accuracy, they could tell you who that person was. They could give you their company name, their email address, their phone number, all that kind of information. And then HubSpot went and gobbled them up, and they have spent the last little while rebuilding the technology and building it into HubSpot. And it's part of what powers the Breeze AI here. So one of the really cool use cases for Breeze AI and Breeze Intelligence here is that we can now enrich contacts with all of the other information that we can pull for them. So in your portal, you will see that you've got a number of Breeze credits. Breeze credits are what we use to power this. So if you enrich your whole database and it's a giant database, you'll probably run out of credits and you'll need some. You need to wait until the next month or buy some more. But this kind of contact enrichment has in the past required integration with other tools. Maybe you use something like Apollo. Maybe use there are lots of data feed providers that you can pull in. But obviously, the more data that we can get on each individual contact in our database, even down to basic things like job title and location, the more complete the profile that we've got, the better personalization we can provide them. So now the job title can be automatically enriched using Breeze, which I think is a much bigger win than it might sound. And that's going to be really cool to see that roll out over the next little while. It's live now, but more and more people are now adding that information to their records. Commerce Hub. Commerce Hub is now its own hub. So if you have not been using it, it's now got an ongoing fee associated with it. So now you can create more granular permissions for users and teams for your quotes and your products and your invoices and things like that. You can now respond to your disputes and chargebacks within Commerce Hub. So if you haven't used Commerce Hub for payments yet, in Australia, it uses Stripe as the payment gateway. So if somebody goes and does a chargeback, it comes in here and you're providing one central point to be able to respond to all the things. You can now do automatic billing after the first subscription invoice payment. So this just allows a few more complex billing scenarios like flexible billing starts. And if the first invoice takes a bit longer to get paid, you can change the timeframes and things. The payment link redirects you can now apply the buyer email address to those payment links. So if you are personalizing the information on the page and the email address is there, then that will allow you to personalize the content that's on that the page that you're redirecting someone after they make their payment. And because that's in HubSpot, if that's in HubSpot, you can personalize all the information on that page. So hugely powerful stuff. Now, the developer platform has been thrown up in the air a little bit. So they're rolling out a whole new developer experience. In case you weren't aware, if you are a developer, you can get a developer instance of HubSpot. That's still available. And there are app certification statuses in the developer portal. So in general, developers have to recertify every 2 years. It's a bit of an involved process. If you are a developer, it's worth having a look into because it's very handy being able to break things in a test portal. And so you can see there, this person certified, that would be June in America time, and now 2027. Cool. There are some additional details generated when you're generating OAuth access tokens. So if you're doing single sign-on with HubSpot and you're using OAuth to do that, more details are included in the response body now, so it'll make it a bit easier to debug that. Hopefully everybody on this call knew that you could use single sign-on with HubSpot. The easiest way to do single sign-on with HubSpot is Google Workspace or Microsoft Entra, but OAuth is another good option depending on the structure of your organization. The app marketplace has had a complete reno. They've also launched some new HubSpot powered apps. So you can see here that we have the ability to sync a Microsoft Teams meeting recording and their transcripts into HubSpot now. That is available on all tiers. So if you use Teams, go and set that up. There is a marketplace listing editor upgrade that's gone through. So that really only applies to people like us who have marketplace listing editors listings. But for you, it means that the marketplace looks different. It's easier to navigate. It's easier to find the things that you want to find. If you use the ads add-on and you link that in with your Google Ads account, you can now create Performance Max campaigns in HubSpot. So this allows you to create ads from within HubSpot, not just the campaign, and it improves the reporting that you get. So alongside of this, Google have also made some improvements to what you can get out of Performance Max from a reporting perspective. So now we've got a lot more visibility over what our friend Performance Max is doing for us. I talked before about HubSpot having some connectors for different CRMs. You can see here that the HubSpot connector for Claude now is able to access more objects than just contacts. So that gives you a lot of additional functionality there. And just while we're talking about that functionality, I just want to remind people that the Claude have just made a change where they've taken away that by default they won't use your data for training, and now by default they will use your data for training unless you tell them not to. And at the same time, ChatGPT also defaults to you giving them permission to use the data. And so I recommend before you start linking up your whole CRM into a tool like Claude or ChatGPT, you make sure that that tool doesn't have access to use that data for training, because there have been a couple of examples pop up where the AI has then reproduced your information for somebody else later on, which is definitely something that we want to avoid. Does this also extend to Copilot? Normally when Copilot is set up, it's set up within a 365 tenant. But I would suggest checking with your IT team just to make sure that it doesn't share the data externally. Most IT people would know that and would already have set that up. But it's a big enough issue that you should have that discussion. If you use Salesforce and HubSpot together, you can now do bidirectional association syncs, which is really cool. LinkedIn Audience Insights. So you can now use the LinkedIn Audience Insights API to show characteristics about contacts. So helpful for being able to better understand your audience. This is now in public beta. And Smart CRM. So the customer agent has been upgraded. They have been using the OpenAI GPT-4, I think it was. I believe they're now using GPT-5. So, and like I said before, they've done a lot of work to try and make sure that your information is in your portal, so that the AI can be trained on your information. So if you're an organization that has knowledge base for your service hub, this is really a good place to start in terms of feeding it a lot of information so that you can give people the best possible answer as quickly as possible. You can assign the customer agent to emails now so that they can help you out by providing initial responses to support tickets. And again, making sure that the customers have got faster responses. Editing your brand information. There is a new brand information panel, which is where you can put all of your different information so that the AI properly understands your brand and can then represent your brand. We have AI-powered recommendations in the automation overview. So if you are looking to do basic automations, this will probably be able to set those up for you. I just would mention that in our experience, the more complicated an automation you want to make, the less helpful this becomes. So if it's a particularly complex automation, feel free to try this every time, but don't be surprised when the response is inadequate. Multiple conditions for rollup properties. So rollup properties are awesome because you can set them to only appear under certain condition. So if somebody gives the answer to this question, then we're going to ask them this question. Whereas now you can apply multiple conditions, complex calculations, and other business logic support. And this becomes really helpful when we don't want to overwhelm people. We want to give them just the information that they need at the time. And so we can put those multiple conditions in there to do just that. One cool thing that I was talking to a customer just yesterday about, there is a multi-account management data mirroring feature that has slowly been rolled out here. It's now live. So you can mirror contacts and company objects across different portals. So this becomes really useful. There are some use cases where instead of doing enterprise and multi-tenant enterprise stuff, you're actually better off with a couple of pro tier accounts that share data. This becomes really helpful because you can do the data sync between those two portals. So the example yesterday was, hey, we work with another organization. They're a partner of ours. We'd like to sync the data with them. Can we do that? The answer is yes. Brand identity. So we can now show where that information came from, what the AI found. And this is a good prompt to warn you, prepare you. Go and check out some of the content we put on the blog recently about generative engine optimization, GEO, because you want to make sure that the AI can find your information and present the right information. Now we have Copilot, HubSpot's Copilot, not Microsoft's Copilot. So that will help you build out your workflows using natural language building. Again, the more complex the use case, the worse the outcome. But definitely recommend giving it a go because for some things it does really well. There is a new testing experience for the customer agent, so you can test it and make sure that you're happy with it before it launches. And if it does give some weird answers, it's a great opportunity to go, hey, have we actually given it the information? Improved search, great. Custom report builder, quick access. So it's easier to go in and make a quick adjustment to a custom report instead of having to spend 6 clicks to go to a different page. And then there is a new account cleanup tool. It used to be called Account Insights, but now it's more about what are the unused assets in your account? Where can you optimize things? It's not just about a cleaner account, but in some cases it actually extends to a more secure account. what are the things in this account that you should do to really make things nice and clean and tidy and secure. It is easier to move your data to HubSpot. There is a transfer tool now. There is a new data model intro page. And on that, I think I might just go and show you a couple of things before we jump off. Now would be an excellent time to throw us through some questions if anyone's got some questions. Cool. So in the data model tool, this is part of the new tools that have come out with Data Hub. So this allows you to look at how your data is structured. You can see HubSpot's popping up with some suggestions here. You can chat with Breeze Copilot to create your own data model, and you can get recommendations. Tell HubSpot how you want to use it. And so you can then step through and look at how you're currently using it. Now, if you don't have an enterprise portal, you won't have access to all of the objects. You won't have access to create custom objects, definitely. But you can see here, I've got some access to a few different objects, and they need to be turned on and off. So courses is one I mentioned before that they launched last year. You can see how that is linked to other objects. But I can also then, I can turn it off, or I can change the properties. So this is quite a useful tool from an information mapping perspective. And this is also where you can turn those other objects on if you didn't have them on. So for example, I've got projects set up now. The one that I added yesterday was listings, which I've temporarily misplaced. But that's your data model there. And then I can go through and I can look at my limits in terms of my portal. I can have 15 million companies and I've only got 9,724. You can see how much you've used depending on the tier that you're on. And then of course you've got an analysis function here, so we can go through and have a look at how many contacts we've got, what processing's going on, what's changing things, etc. Now, you'll also see here that we've got the Data Studio tool now, which is where we can build out our agents and we can link in other data sources. If you're not currently bringing all your data sources together into one CRM, whether that be HubSpot or something else, it's really something that you need to consider, because it gives you a lot of power being able to see where the whole state of a customer, be able to help them better. So you can see here all of your external data sources. You can create new data sets. You can link into external ones. So they've really pulled everything to do with data into Data Hub so that it's all in one place and we know what that does, and we can track that accordingly. The data quality tool is another one there where they've now added the ability to automate some of these formatting issues that come up. I won't show you any of the formatting issues today, but it might be things like the suburb is formatted differently for some people, so we want to make sure that we can do that in bulk. Now, going through this, I also want to show you quickly the brand tool, which you can see it's got the little beta label next to it, so just consider that. So your brand kit here, we've had the brand kit for a while. You can put your logos and your icons and your theme and things in there. But you'll also see your brand voice here. So you can build out terms to avoid. Anyone who's worked in government or watched Utopia on the ABC probably has some terms that they want to avoid. Replacement rules that you can set up. And so this is around, again, training the AI to be able to provide you with the best quality output. So you can see there's other input you can put in here, like the industry, industry-related tags, customer sentiment, competitive advantages, content themes. You can put quite a lot in here to really make sure that the AI's got all the information that it can possibly have in here. So really, really helpful. I know it seems a bit weird training the AI, but it becomes hugely useful. You can turn this along. Hugely useful for just giving things a once-over and helping out with your editing process. But don't expect it to be that good if you don't set up your data sources. So here we've got our data sources. We put our company profile information in, our ideal customer profile, the marketing strategy that we want our agents to follow, and our own products and services. So there's a lot that we can go into really deep there. If you don't spend the time setting this up, and it won't take that long if you've already got the information pulled together, this will not be a good experience for you. If you have the information, you have it populated, you'll get quite good outputs. The last one that I wanted to kind of end on with Breeze here is the Breeze Studio. I know some of you have been playing around with it. So there's now a whole agent marketplace that you can go to. Most of the agents at the moment are built by HubSpot, but you know, a deal loss agent. So identify trends in the deals that you've lost and recommend ways to improve your win rates. Transform your call transcripts into notes and follow-up emails. So all of this AI here is really around helping make your life, the sales rep's life, easier, more efficient. We're not replacing anyone in this process. It's more about how can we go through and help us out. So there's a company research agent here that'll go through and find information about the company before you reach out to them. A blog research agent that's going to research the topic and write the blog for you. Transferring accounts with information. There's a lot of different things that come up here. Surface the most engaging moments from your video library, because hey, HubSpot wants your whole video library now. And once it's got that, then it can make really good edits for you to be able to put together different videos that you're probably not currently having the time to do. All right. This one's probably one of my favorite use cases. Account-based marketing landing page agent. So it can create personalized landing pages for contacts based on everything that we know about them. So again, huge use case, heaps that we can do there. And at the moment, it doesn't use any of your credits, but at some point in the future, it might. The main use of your credits at the moment, you can see it shows us up here how many HubSpot credits we've got. Main use of your credits at the moment is that data enrichment that we looked at before. All right, now I feel like that's been really solid. Does anyone have any questions or anything else that they'd like me to demo before we wrap up, given we're already a couple of minutes over? While you're thinking about that, we will be doing one more hug for the year. We are hoping to do one in person. Alice is very excited about doing an in-person hug, so we'd like to have an in-person hug, although that sounds like a different thing than running a HubSpot user group. But anyway, so keep an eye out in your email for the hugs. That'll probably be in November, so we can stay clear of your very busy Christmas season. All right, if there are no last questions, we'll wrap up there. Thanks for coming along today. Thanks for your questions. Please let me know if you've got any more questions on our socials. We'd be happy to help you. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you face-to-face in 6 or 8 weeks. Thanks, everyone.